Our next presenter will be Sabrina Hill. I call her to the podium. She was on the Citizens Committee regarding members of council compensation. Welcome to Regional Council.
Thank you. Happy to be back. Thank you, Chair, Council, for adding me as a very late delegate and allowing me time to speak. If you'll indulge me for a few moments, I just want to point out some of the highlights of our recommendations from the CCCR, explain the rationale that went into our proposal, and address some of the concerns raised at corporate services. Our recommendations, given our mandate from Council, had attempted to create a simple, precise mechanism for establishing reasonable adjustments for Council going forward. As you can see from our calculations, are considerably lower than some of the increases in years past and in line with the Council-approved comparator group. An important aspect to our recommendation is that it is at arm's length and does not require the Council to revisit this controversial issue each year. Though, if new unforeseen circumstances were to happen, the policy could be amended or abandoned. Importantly, our recommendations correct some of the flaws in the former method used to establish wage increases, primarily the use of CPI and the Conference Board's average, which was based in some part on self-reporting, all of which are less transparent than our mechanism. The formula you'll be voting on shortly more accurately reflects the actual cost of labor increases year over year. Going into this process, I had in mind to place caps on Council remuneration and tie any future increases to the same increase the unionized workers from the region received. However, after careful deliberation and examining scores of data carefully prepared by the very helpful region staff, my approach shifted to what is before you. Some of the concerns raised at the November 6th Corporate Services Committee meeting are as a result of some ambiguity of our terms of reference. Our final report is based on our interpretation of an ambiguous terms of reference from Council. I will not speak for my other committee members. I believe our scope was simply to determine a procedural mechanism for establishing wage increases going forward. It was not to determine whether the current remuneration was fair. Given that mandate, I think our proposal is sound. I came before Council earlier this year with big signs in chambers rejecting the idea of wage increases. I truly believe that our recommendations from the committee is reasonable, fiscally responsible, and transparent. I've had an awakening. Given my past of believing I was always right, I have to admit that maybe that sign was a little bit harsh in the past. In closing, I commend and very much respect the councillors that, on principle, are voting against the new proposal because they believe they already receive reasonable compensation for their work. However, voting down these recommendations tonight may result in an administrative chaos and could even result in larger percentage increases in the future when future councils are forced to revisit this issue. With the chair's permission, I'm open to questions.
Well, thank you very much for your presentation. And I see Councillor Yip would like to direct some questions. Councillor Yip.
Thank you, through you, Chair. Just to clarify one of the points of discussion that happened at last week's Corporate Services meeting, you and I had engaged on social media about the recommendations, and then when I saw that you were present, I asked you and one of your committee colleagues the question that we had been discussing on Twitter. Can you speak to, as far as you can, to how the committee feels about the methodology being held off until the beginning of the next term of council.
Yeah, so of the 3-person committee, I only feel comfortable speaking on behalf of 2, myself and another, because I'm aware of his opinions on this. Him and I both feel that the recommendations that we proposed could be or should be held over until the next council.
Thank you. Are there any other questions of our presenter? If not, thank you very much for your presentation this evening.